Howdy, folks. Greyhawk 4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer, and it is time for our campaign update. Our campaign that's taking place in the Dolmenwood game world, game setting, using the OSE Fantasy Advanced Fantasy game rules, rule set. So, where we left off last time, and if you want to get caught up, go back. I have a playlist for this campaign. You can go back and get caught up as much as you need to. When we last left off, we had done a couple of investigations inside the town, which ended up garnering us favor from the locals. We solved the riddle of who was stealing beer from the one tavern, and we solved the riddle of or the mystery of who was haunting the blacksmith. We took care of both those things. So when we started up when we started up on Friday when we played, today in game time, the idea was, what do we do next? The question was, what do we do next? So we knew that we have the issue with the dragon lizard thing that needs to be dealt with, but we also know that is going to be completely overwhelmingly challenging for us unless we get some help, meaning some type of magic item or magic items, plural, some additional manpower, whatever. So the DM also told us at this point that each of us had a personal quest, and we're playing in Roll20, so each character has a journal, and you can only see your journal. And he said, just check your journal for your personal quest. And our magic user, he had a personal quest. He didn't go into a lot of detail about it with us, but he basically said that he had this pendant that we had gotten in the tomb, where I had almost been killed by the gray ooze and all that. He had gotten a pendant, and it basically said, that it's a magic pendant, and if he throws it up in the air, it will tell him what direction to go in for his quest. And he decided we need to go south because that's what the pendant told him. And we all agreed to go with him on his quest to help him. So that's what we did. Now, what we didn't know was, to the south, was what's called Hag's Addle, is the name of the area that we were going into. Now, the first creature that we encountered, which happened to be a random encounter, and I posted a picture of it on my Twitter. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, I post, while we're playing, I post images pretty much throughout the evening to kind of give you guys a taste of what's happening. And there's a picture on there, Greyhawk at Greyhawk4x4 on Twitter, just like here. That's my handle everywhere. There's a picture of it where you can see there's this scarecrow type creature. Instead of a head, it wears like a piece of pottery, like a jug of pottery as a head. Now, when we encounter him, he has become detached from his head. So the piece of pottery is laying over one place, and his body is separate. And at some point, the head says, hey, can you help me get my body back and all this? So Ainz, the fighter that I play, who is completely out 100% in search of adventure, and whatever adventure entails, without hesitation, he just goes over to the body to grab the body, to throw it over his shoulder, to take it over there and reconnect it, And, but the body doesn't want to go. It's flailing about and everything. And I end up subduing it. I rolled for opposing strength checks or whatever to subdue it. But I remember I took some damage. Somebody took some damage. And we get this thing attached. While I'm holding it, they put the head on and all that. And as a reward, now once it's back whole again, it's completely docile and friendly and says, hey, thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. Here, have this pie as a reward. and gives us a pie. Now, this all takes place in this place called the Dolmenwood. So, Google that if you want to, because if you want to do some research on the Dolmenwood, it's a crazy place, and when I mean that in a good way. So this creature, the picture that's in the book, I guess, is like the one I posted on Twitter, is this humanoid with the pottery head holding a pie. So as a reward, he gives us his pie. Boysenberry, in case anybody's wondering. And we all decide we're going to try it. And we tried it all, and there was nothing wrong. It's just a regular pie. It wasn't like poison. It wasn't like giving us special powers. It didn't heal us. Just a pie. Anyway, so that was the first encounter of the evening. So we continue on, and we end up in this place called the Hag's Addle. And we're the magic user is using this pendant, whatever you want to call it, to tell him which direction to go. And so we're going along, and at some point we get attacked by some like wild pigs, wild boars, or whatever, and we end up having to fight them off. And it was touch and go there for these things were mean. But the bottom line is we end up defeating them, and if I remember correctly, one of our the other fighter, and I always forget his name. It's like Johnny Midnight. His last name is Midnight, but I forget his first name. Randy Midnight. Randy Midnight, the other fighter, played by our friend Brad. I think Randy went down, if I remember correctly. And so we were deciding that, well, we need to try and get him fixed up or whatever. And we encounter this humanoid woman, this human woman who is by the stream or whatever. And the way it was described to us is she was very beautiful maiden that's there. And so she is quite taken with several of us, and does her feminine charm thing, and tells us that we can go to her cottage or whatever, and we can eat and drink and be merry and all that other stuff. And several of us are like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Or a couple of us are like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea or whatever. Our Grimalkin, which is our little cat humanoid player character, played by Stesha, and that character's name again is starts with a P. Petunia. Petunia decides that she's going to do some foraging. And so she's doing some foraging, and she gets surrounded. So two of us, me and the magic user, Eins and the magic user, his name is Brom, played by Niels, we go to the cottage because we're like somewhat charmed or whatever. We go to the cottage, and the Grimalkin, Petunia, and Randy Midnight. Matter of fact, Randy hadn't gone down at that point. He was still up and about at that point. But while we go to this cottage, they decide they're going to forage for mushrooms and stuff, which in this game world are the way you get healing. I mean, besides if you have a cleric or not, but separate, you can also get like wild mushrooms and stuff that will heal you. So they're foraging, and they get surrounded by these like other Grimalkins, these other cat creatures. But these are like the evil version of the Grimalkins or whatever. And they get subdued. That's where Randy Midnight goes down, gets knocked unconscious. They drag him and Petunia both somewhere else. So back in the cottage, this maiden or whatever serves us some tea or whatever, and the next thing you know, my character, Eins, he's out. He's gone to sleep. He's done. So something happens with him, with the magic user and her, while Ainz is sleeping. And the next morning, we wake up and the cottage is gone. She's gone, and we're in a weird state of affairs. I feel my character doesn't feel like he's been harmed or damaged or whatever, but the magic user looks horrible. He looks like the life has been drained out of him, and his color doesn't look good and everything else, and he has been severely weakened by whatever went on. And somehow he knows about some portal he has to go through now between this maiden and his pendant or whatever. He's aware of this portal he's got to go through or whatever. And we go out and we end up trying to find Petunia and Randy Midnight. And what turned out there is that they were taken off to another little hovel, and there was this evil hag that came in, who owns all these cat grimalkin things, and she does something to Petunia. Petunia's not sure what, but she does something to her, and says, "Oh, you're gonna be under my spell," or whatever. And then this evil hag proceeds to rip one of Randy Midnight's ears off and throw it down and feed it to her cat creature, Grimalkin's things. Just rips his ear off. And then that all disappears. That hovel disappears, everything disappears, and they're alone. And so we end up meeting up with them, two different experiences. They had the experience with the evil witch, and we had the experience with this maiden, who we don't know if that's the same person or not. We don't know if that's the same person. But we know that the magic user wants to go through this portal that he's aware of now, and he leads us to it. So we go to this portal, and we go inside, and it's very obvious once we get inside this portal that this is very dangerous. We don't belong here. And luckily for us, the DM had rolled on the random encounter table, and just happened to roll that the witch of the woods, who happens to be like a neutral, maybe good type creature, he rolls it, and we saw it. He rolled it. It wasn't like he fudged it. He rolled it. She happens upon us, and she heals. I was badly hurt at that point from the wild pigs, I think. And Randy was down. He was unconscious and had his ear ripped off. She heals everybody, and then she agrees to fly us out of there. And she explains to us we explain what happened, and she says, "Oh, that was the Hag of Hag's Addle, is what that female creature is known as." And she basically flies us back to town. She has a way of basically flying us there, and we make it back to town, and we're all aware that, okay, we're not sure exactly what just happened, but we know it wasn't good. We know that Randy's injured, like disfigured injured. Something happened to Petunia, and something happened to the magic user, Brom. He doesn't even look the same, And so when we get back to town, we go back to our tavern thing and everything, and we're explaining to the barkeep, here's what has happened, and his eyes get like this big, and he's like, "Oh, that's the hag. You're telling me that there's hags, and we got this dragon thing out there, and the Fae are in the area," and he decides that's it. it's becoming too dangerous. He can't even get, because of the dragon creature, the story of the dragon creature getting out, he can't get anything delivered from the bigger towns brought to him because the merchants are too scared to travel because of this dragon thing. And he decides on the spot, I'm done. I'm leaving town. I'm going up north where it's safe. And we're like, well, what are you going to do with this tavern? Well, he's like, do whatever you want with it. You can have it. And he gives us the deed. He packs his shit and he takes off. He's like, you can shut it down. You can burn it down. You can do whatever you want with it. And he takes off. So now we have a tavern. Now, it's going to be questionable how we're going to stock the tavern, because, again, the merchants can't get through and so forth. But we basically have this tavern in this town that we have pretty good reputation in now. But we still have to deal with the dragon. We've got to deal with the hag. We got to find out what's happened to Petunia and what's happened to the magic user. And there's and the fae that broke into his tavern on the episode before and was stealing all of his beer. That's one of the things that scared him. That, along with the dragon and the hag, he's like, I'm done. I'm out. I don't want to deal with this anymore. And so that's where we're at. That is a down and dirty synopsis of what we went through. That was a wild session. From encountering a dude who has a piece of pottery, like urn type thing, ewer, whatever you want to call it, as a head, to encountering this evil witch who can appear as a maiden or a hag, having somebody get their ear ripped off, somebody having drained. Oh, by the way, the draining, it turned out that she actually drained a level from the magic user. He lost a level. That was level drain. That's why he looked the way he did. That's where we're at, guys. I don't know. I mean, it's a blast. It is a blast, because this is some new shit that, as a 40-year player of Dungeons and Dragons, I'm experiencing shit that I never experienced before. So that's the way you want it. You want new stuff. You don't want old rehash of the same old stuff. This is new and fresh for me. So this Dolmenwood stuff. So anyway, that is the campaign update. And I'm sorry I don't know if you guys are able to pick it up on the mic. If you are, I apologize. My fireplace, we are having like 60-mile-an-hour winds outside right now, and when that happens from the north, it makes the fireplace whistle, and you can hear the wind noise coming through the fireplace. So if that bled through, I apologize. I hope it did not. But if it did, that's the explanation. That's what you're hearing. So anyway, guys, until next time, we will catch you on the flip side.